Thank you, dear. This is Omar. This is Sheila. My wife, Lauren. Where are you streaming it from? No. Where, like the camera right here? Can we bring it up here and just point it down at what he's doing? Yes, let's try to do that. Can we do? All right, can we do that? Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Omar wanted to have a fire and just paint on the floor, so this is the closest to that we can do.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and doodle.
I love that. Oh, cheers. That's good.
There it is. That's about it. And the rest of the process is just going in that.
So you said you like to drink and draw. You do that all the time? Because that's what I do. What facilitates your creative process? Is it like I stay up late and drink and listen to Cranberries? The band. Sometimes the Cranberry fruits do talk to me. Yeah, that's true. They're pretty angry. Thanks.
I like looking at old dead.
He likes looking at old dead. Go on.
Dead. Or
Yeah.
Not a steak, but I can get rid of it. It's gone. Inspiration.
This is fascinating. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah. The few, the brave. But yeah, I don't drink too much in the studio. Certain points, particularly oil.
Okay. Because it's longer?
No, there's certain kinds of fluids.
Yeah.
No, that's why you're supposed to come close. It's like I'm not going to be accommodating the machine. I do not go ahead and dial to the robot. No, I found a really good trick was coffee and whiskey.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
So it's like when you're working really the long hours, is you have a big cup of coffee and a big tumbler of whiskey and a little sip of this and a little sip of that and keep going with that. But generally, I like to have a hot drink or something, either coffee or tea.
Yeah.
Because you always need to have the glass of something. Even if this was just hot water or work, just as good as tequila. But it's yeah, because it's for something that is so internal,
Yeah,
and small. And that's one of the parts I actually kind of regret in my approach is that it is. It's like I don't need much for a studio. Just put me in a little closet and I can go ahead and work with this. And I kind of wish to some degree that I was more physical. One of those people that go ahead and paint,
Yeah.
And because it's not, so that's why you need like a little glass or something.
Yeah.
The rest of the body is
intimate
doing
with a little
something,
5x7
so something
piece of
else is
paper.
doing, so otherwise, yeah. So now I am doing what I never do, is map out because what I normally would do is actually draw it.
So it starts as pencils.
Sometimes pencils, sometimes just dirty water. Never pencils when it's oil.
Yeah.
Usually thinned out. We watched those, shit, what was the one I really fell in love with actually? The Vermilion? Not the Viridian. That was named. It's reddish. It's this neat red I found that I really like as an underpainting. Because I was using umbers for a while, but the umbers just leach out oil. It's such ridiculousness. Even though they dry so good. But I like the vibrancy of the Vermilion as an underpaint. And it's kind of I got the oil, my handling of oil is kind of the same approach as how I handle watercolor, which even though I went to the Rhode Island School of Design and never took a watercolor class there, so I never really grabbed onto at least the 20th century contemporary approach to watercolor, which has never been my bag.
It's like, what? World War I, back in the 1400s, it really looked like a lot of contemporary work. So
When I was in school, our school was a lot of 19th century art, which was kind of a great period, and there's a lot of stuff again, like getting rehacked, because it was a rehack. I think we're in the same historical moment, industrial age, technology age, society's in a major shift, people's roles within society and identity is shifting, the technology is changing the way we interact, and there's a lot of retro, a lot of re-examining, a lot of reinventing ideas that already existed. So you end up, especially in the fantasy illustration world and the movies and all that, the amount of 19th century aesthetic is like incredible. But this was back in the 80s, and I was very much into illustration back when there was publishers and books. There still sort of is, but it's not the way. Yeah. And even then, though, it was still, you kind of looked to the turn of the century for the golden age when book publishing was, which is kind of cool, because again, just in the last decade or so, you get these small micro publishers that are publishing books for, you know, the Animal Farm, that was for, thank you, Suntup, you know, which like published for what, a couple $100 for the book. Wow, it's ridiculous. Limited edition, but beautifully done. So, yeah, so the art gift book thing, which is neat that it's promoting again back to the whole idea of illustrators and the magic of it. So yeah, so Rackham and Dulac, all those were very big for me. Picking an eyeball. You guys can come a shit ton closer. You know? It's like, go ahead, cover if you want. Yeah, you can just pull it.
I don't want to block anybody else.
Do not have to go ahead and keep those chairs where they are. You could literally move chairs.
Wait, no, those chairs are built to the floor.
No, I mean, if we wanted to, we could tear panels off the roof. I mean, it's like, but I do a lot of push and pull.
With negative space?
More line, because it's like my initial was I was always in love with line.
Okay.
And what's kind of interesting on my journey at this was I've been doing this 30 years. 8 years, 23. So it's been, yeah, more than 3 decades. And studying a lot of the old painters. And so to start getting an idea of what are they actually doing. There's a lot of stuff I actually like looking at. Subject matter is ridiculously boring, but the execution is absolutely gorgeous. And then you start trying to figure out what is their trick. relationship of shape to line to tonality becomes a really interesting thing to play with. Um, what defines an edge? What defines a block? Right now, I'm working very monochrome, so I'm not even have to worry about color. But it would very quickly start being a question of temperature and
Mhm.
where that starts playing into the narration. And I have to say, as an interviewer, either you're crafty or you really suck. You didn't say squat.
Well, I was kind of just trying to let you go. Seems like it was a better move.
That's where it's like, God.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is rare. I'm
I'm
listening. So what in your work, do you consider them different series? Because they kind of they span the years, so I noticed like you do like a certain type of style, or like you zoom in and make like a weird head with a teapot melted into it, that kind of thing. But then you come back like a year later and paint like another close-up portrait. Is there a series that you enjoy? Do you consider them series or paintings in a series?
I never thought of that. What a very good interview question.
They seem to me like, for instance, the women that are holding the
There
demon
is
type
kind
things.
of a, when you,
They sort of seem like they go together, but they've been painted over years.
I started out maybe like the first 15 years, I was really primarily commercial illustrator. So I was getting contracted, given a manuscript, read the manuscript, paint the cover. They wanted a interiors, whatever, brush for hire.
Mhm.
At the same time, I was doing these convention thingies and selling my own silliness on the side as well as selling the originals from those. And then there came a flipping point. I think it was one of the economic downturns in the publishing. What is it? Yeah, one of those recessions.
One in the late 90s.
Yeah, probably that one actually, because I was sort of getting burned out on book covers anyway, but then publishers started dropping art because they could go and use a computer to go ahead and do the you traitor.
No, that's,
No, I just have to go ahead and write it.
I think because I came out 7 years later than you, that made a difference.
Uh-huh.
And-
Yeah. Yeah, because when I graduated, my first jobs, I had to go and do my own color sense. I send the originals and also had to do my own color separations, let alone have a digital file to send out. So it's entirely different publishing world.
You know Mike Sass and his work.
Yeah, no, maybe. I know the name. I don't have nothing popped in my head as to the work itself, but I probably do know it.
He worked a little bit more Dungeons and Dragons fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
He and I, pretty much the same age. He graduated in 96. I'm 98. And they taught him, the old process.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately, as soon as he graduated, everything switched. So I had kids 1 year ahead of me who got hired, was right after Toy Story, and anybody who knew anything with computers got hired down in Hollywood right away.
Mm-hmm.
I had a buddy who went from our school to the head of Sony 3D production, just right out of school because he was somebody who knew a computer. It was weird.
That was one of those parts of like what it is you want to do with this stuff, because it's like right now it seems like everybody is digital concept artists, and it almost begins to feel like it's sweatshop work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Um, But one of the things I didn't really have an idea where I wanted to go, particularly when I left school. Um, so I just worked brush for hire. If they wanted to pay me $5 to pick up a pen or a brush, I'll go ahead and try. So it's like everything from the local paper to painting murals in people's private homes to getting a motorcycle tank. One of those pin-up bombardier thingies.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like anything to kind of like work, trying to figure out the craft, right? The skill and trying to understand what a client wants or needs and to be able to hit. I was getting a lot of work once I started really working for people just because I hit deadlines. Like the amount of artists that don't hit deadlines. It's like, apparently it's a thing.
I'm pretty bad about that. Yeah.
So you're one of the ones that's like, it's like I got Iron Crown,
Okay.
Middle Earth, Tolkien card gaming thingy. They ended up getting squashed by Wizards. And Wizards bought them out, and so that company went bankrupt and still owed me money. But I was getting shit tons of work from them because I could do the turnaround. Get 24-hour, literally 24-hour turnaround.
Wow,
And I was
that's
like, learn how to go ahead and paint forts really quick.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But yeah, so I can't remember what the money was. But, I'm an idiot. But it was like, and like I said, it was like they were asking me to do. So
You must have been kind of taking advantage of that big push in the mid '90s for card art.
no.
No?
Well, I don't know how I stumbled on the Middle Earth, but I totally missed the Magic boat.
Okay.
Because once Magic came out, and I knew some artists that went ahead and bought their first house, because that was back when they were paying shares, for the cards.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And so it's like when I started getting Magic card art, it was like flat fee, here you go, thank you very much, and no one wanted to buy the original. It was like for the first years, there was the market for the originals. I gave away a whole bunch for the $100. Sure, take it. And now it's like I go ahead and I'm at a nice place for the moment, and I thank those lucky gods at the moment that they're I can just ask. I'll take a couple of cards and I'll do them just because I know they'll pay decent enough for the initial commission. But I know I could go ahead and sell the original as well. And that's what was neat about when I was doing cover work, mostly for YA, was I get paid a couple of thousand for the commission, and then you go and sell the original for another $3,000. Because there was a market in a certain little eclectic group that liked to buy published work, even though the images, some of them were just kind of like silly. I had no idea what it's like. Why would you put that on your wall? Okay. But that's because there is like you spend so much time learning the craft and building stuff, and it's like if you actually go and calculate the hours per how much am I actually getting paid, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So it's like if you could go ahead and milk a cow in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember running into Wayne Reynolds
Yep.
in 2009 at Gen Con, and he had boxes of originals there, just in less protective stuff than what we have the prints out here.
Yeah.
I stood there, and the first time I come across him, and I was just speechless because I was flipping through what looked like a comic book box of just original artwork. It was like $300 or $400.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
So you want to tell us about Goblin Market a little bit, or how that came out?
That happened. He hasn't actually bought anything from me in a long time. I had a collector, Rod Robert Winger, who ran Donald Grant Publishing, very, very small publishing house. He had the privilege of doing special edition Stephen King novels. But he also knew all the old big time Kaluta and Jeffrey Jones and Barry Windsor and all of those New England painters from back in the 70s and 80s. And he's a collector, a very, very, very powerful collector. And he ended up buying my stuff at one of these conventions and started buying it up. And this was kind of near where I was starting to kind of burn out a bit on doing commercial work. But he kept on nagging me that he wanted to go ahead and do a book. And I don't really believe in the best of anthologies until you're dead.
Okay.
It should be post-mortem, you know? So it's like, okay, you gotta kind of come up with something. And what do we do for a book? You know, make some kind of art book. And Ruth Sanderson, I don't know if you know her, she does, or did, the traditional 32-page trade children's book, fairy tales, Cinderella, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Very beautiful work, absolutely gorgeous. And she was wanting to go ahead, you know, she got big enough she could go ahead and pick what she wanted to do. And she was wanting to try and tackle the goblin market, but if you know anything about that poem, not only is it 500 pages long, it also deals with very risque diction, druggy, lesbian loving, crazy ass, turn of the century bohemian stuff that's kind of hidden within all those metaphors. So it's like to try and pare it down to a 32-page children's book just wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you should do that. And Robert was like, okay. And the only way I could figure on doing it, because I was getting tired of like being the brush for hire. And it's like, here's the time frame, here's the format, and all of that. It's like, it'd be fun to try and tackle a book which didn't have a time frame, didn't have a format, didn't have a structure, didn't have to have a cohesion to it. It's just use the poem. And the poem was a perfect thing to actually tackle because it was nothing but symbolism and metaphor.
So you can kind of interpret it.
Stanza had like just piles of interpretive imagery that you could just kind of sit back, have some drinks, smoke your opium pipe, and go off and like, there's an image, you know? So it's like, that'd be a brilliant thing to kind of use more as a seed catalyst. And what was brilliant about having Robert at that time, he was more than happy to kind of like just buy the originals that may have built them. And so, because technically that would be completely uneconomical to try and convince any publisher to take on a project like that. Along with open-ended, didn't know whether it's going to be this big, whether it's going to be horizontal, whether it's going to be done in 2 years or 8 years. And it's like completely open. And so it's like, it wasn't until I was about 2/3 through that I started actually laying stuff out and figuring where I needed to actually start
okay.
structuring the book and figuring out whether it's even going to be a horizontal or vertical, let alone, you know, oh, I'm going to need some more images here to balance out the type.
Yeah, that's
So I kind of designed it backwards.
a true amount of freedom, though.
Yeah,
Like, to be
but
able
that
to-
kind of freedom is like so ridiculously rare. You know, that
Agreed.
it's like,
Is that why you were okay doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many years?
oh, we actually, because it's like I just had to go ahead and do a copy of the library, and it was like, and I noticed first time because I didn't even look at the book for years. It's kind of one of those things. It's like you hear actors that don't actually look at the movies that they did. It's like, you know, so I actually looked at the copyright for the first time since it was published, and it was,
Yeah.
But it could be about, what, 10 years, you know.
right. So it's been 6 years since, and then it was like about 8 years of, and I was kind of shoehorning into this project and stuff. So you know, the idea idea was to go ahead and do one a month type of thing, but
Right.
if it's in that, so it's like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but it was kind of a fun sort of, and that ends up being one of those is, the whole idea of just can't and they will come philosophy, I think, works more on the lines of I have ideas of what I would like to be as a painter, but then there's what actually works,
Mhm.
you know? And it's like if you just go ahead and make a shit ton of stuff, and kind of like, oh, what's comfortable and seems to work, ends up being the one that you start getting jobs for, people buy or not. And if they stop buying what you're doing, if you do enough stuff, oh, that's not sticking to the wall. We'll
Mhm.
just follow that now until that bad guy's out. Yeah.
Does it frustrate you as an artist trying to figure out what's commercially viable instead of just painting like
It
sort of like
is
what you want to do?
very difficult because right now I am literally at that position where I get to pick and choose,
Yeah.
which is like, oh, suddenly I have arrived, and it's like, oh fuck, and that's why
Oh,
in
no,
a
I've
lot
arrived.
of ways I'm actually kind of like going, it's like, oh, thank you, magic.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
one of the few contracts because it's like the publishing stuff is done, and it's, oh, but I did say yesterday, guys, is he self-publishing that book? I said yes to a book cover I'm supposed to build this winter.
No, it's public.
It's a publisher. Wow. So you want to publish or publish? Yeah, because it's like I hardly get those anymore. Yeah, again, yeah,
Oh, okay.
a small press thing, yeah. But otherwise, it's like for commercial stuff, it's like it used to be. It used to be, editorials or publishing houses, and now it's either gaming or movie industry or that stuff is different than
Target too.
then yeah, and it's like, or the really rare one, what was that? Insurance agency. I had to go ahead and do it. Corporate. It was the one of the few corporate contracts I got,
Mhm.
and they want to do a tortoise and hare thingy for their annual report.
Really?
Yeah, slow but sure. Wins the race. So I was able to go ahead and do book, children's book style towards
Yeah.
the hair illustrations for corporate. And being corporate, it's like throw a couple extra zeros behind it.
You're right. Yeah.
Was all it was. It was different, but it was such a weird, different. How there's these bizarre little eclectic little markets that are hidden out there, and how you access them. And I think that one is like one I actually had an agent for a while, because near the end it was like you aren't able to get to stuff unless you have an agent that's been open certain doors. But I was at that point already 12 years in of negotiating my own contract, so I had a little bit of a problem with the way they negotiated contracts and freedom of that, and it was like, but they did give me a couple of fun and different sort of jobs that were there at the time. So, staying more or less warm in the tones,
Mm-hmm.
and building the tones up and out and starting to define structure. So it's like basically just looking for back to knowing anatomy, skeletal structure, whether it's a real critter or not. It's going to be an eye socket. It's going to be cheekbone points and all of that. So it's like trying to structure that out, figure out where the light points are coming from. What else was there?
So Charles Dust did your intro.
Yeah,
Goblin Market.
he did really good.
Yeah.
I like Chuck. Guess what?
Are you friends at
Not really, because
Okay.
you know what?
What?
Chuck doesn't like being called Chuck.
So you just get under his skin on purpose?
Yeah, so I call him Chuck. He doesn't talk to me much, but he's a sweetheart guy and very intelligent. He did a wonderful job with that intro.
Yeah. I found him. I was
But don't call him
watching-
Chuck.
Okay. Chuck though is who I'm talking about. He did like Rose. It was a prequel to the Bone comic book. I don't know if you guys know that one, but that was the first time I saw it because I was reading comics a lot back then. So then I realized like, oh, he does other illustrations, but you guys seem to have very similar styles. That's what I was kind of asking about. Is
Yeah.
that why you
I kind of,
did you choose him to do your introduction?
yeah. What were you thinking of?
Oh yeah.
I think Bess was. I think Bess was a better fit anyway. So you really know the goblin market.
Well, I have the book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's like it kind of
That's a big accomplishment.
I
100 illustrations or so.
Is it? I know. I never really counted.
You don't count it?
I never counted.
Oh, you count. Oh, count it.
And in a lot of ways, I sort of kind of don't really. It's its own. I don't really hold on to a lot of stuff once they're done.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, that's why it's always kind of interesting that after years bumping into your own work, and kind of, yeah, I need that. I mean, it's like a lot of it I don't really recognize. So now I'm just piling. I don't know why I'm starting to get into this. This is just a synthetic flat that, because typically I'll go ahead and paint with a Winsor Newton Series 7 Kolinsky size 1. But for this kind of um, travel kit, go ahead and move things a little quicker, I suppose. That's the kind of finding that holding on to. I have a problem of what's in my hand. I'll just go ahead and use it.
Yeah. Okay.
And oil I work on smooth board, pre-gessered masonite, because I like detail. But I can still go ahead and trash brushes like the Dickens. And watercolor is like the same sort of technique.
I find it
Is he
forgiving.
smiling or is he wrong?
It seems kind of like a jerk.
Yeah, I think he's kind of. I don't want to make him, but make it kind of.
Honestly, he just looks like
Because
he's
like
sitting.
It's like
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. Maybe some, yeah. So it's so I end up actually trashing. That's why I like the Winsor Newton 7s, is they take a good amount of abuse. Because when they start breaking down, they turn into nice nubbies that still hold water and you can go ahead and scrub.
I was gonna ask for the larger spaces. You still use the one? Or you like to?
Yeah,
I noticed you were like
got
kind of
a-
scraping with the
Yeah.
paint at the beginning.
Yeah,
But-
I do have a flat that I very rarely use if I have, because I don't have a lot of landscaping stuff.
You're right.
You know, it's like landscape work really good as background.
Mm-hmm.
And my go-to always kind of falls into the 16th and 17th century, 17th and 18th now actually. It's like Van Dyke always come back down to.
Okay.
Although it's like those 18th century guys, the Joshua Reynolds and those fellows, Lawrence.
Do you take inspiration from like the area you live in, you know, or like in terms of the background?
Not directly,
Okay.
you know. And then it's like I remember actually going ahead and doing something at school. It's like one of the most smartest things that a kid asked that no interviewer did. That's what you just did, you know. Because it's like we live on
I'm not a very good one.
the vineyard.
Yeah.
So it's just a distinctive New England Cape sort of semi-aggy. And our road is literally right up against the state forest. And I don't really directly think that I am, but at the same time, I don't know, because I literally went from art school to the island in a make me wonder if I did do, because that was right at the edge of when you were supposed to go to Manhattan. You wanted to be an illustrator. And you're supposed to go ahead and pound the pavement with your portfolio, but it's at that point the portfolio review thing is starting to drop off your portfolio, and maybe it's going to go upstairs, maybe it's not, and you come back to the end of the day and pick it up. So it's like, fuck that, I ain't doing shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it does make you wonder, it's like, what would I be paying if I was in an urban environment? Would it actually change? Because you are looking at stuff, but at the same time, it's like a lot of things I just like going ahead and just going through the museum of paintings. And it's like the Spanish and Italian impressionists are really hitting me right now in a big way. And it's like Baldini. You know Baldini?
Yeah.
Yeah, so much fucking fun. And it's like everything from this slashing figure work that is like this limiter to hours, but it's like you get into it outside impressionist stuff is like the brushwork is brilliant. You know, Fortuny is another one. It's like so much of the watercolors are brilliant the way it just kind of builds form that has this academic, that has this looseness, that catches an immediacy that is like really something. And then you kind of filter that through a Rubens or a Van Dyke and some of those Flemish and Northern Renaissance standards. And that's where things kind of go. And then how much, and then what happens being outside and kind of like having that in your head. It's the first time I was like studying Oriental painting and walking down the street, and it's like all the trees looked like they were Sumé brushwork. You know, it's like what you fill your head with, the color and how you actually see what's in front of you. And then you start looking at things and kind of going, oh, I could totally see, like, how would Rembrandt go ahead and deal with this figure, you know? And then you kind of riff off of it. And it ends up being riffing. And that's the part where it's like, you should do the riffing, not your fucking AI.
So AI
But it is the
art.
same sort of shit, though, in a lot of ways. It's just, are you filtering it through an algorithm? Or are you filtering it through an organic algorithm of your own experiences?
Is it death of creativity, or is it like industrial revolution?
I think it's just another tool point,
Yeah.
and it's you know, and the level of, and it's not even how much people would end up being. My missus is fantastic at spotting this shit, and some people don't even know to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, but you do definitely know, and there's people that don't even use AI, but they paint like they're doing AI. And that comes to an aspect of this whole thing. I'm not that great of a painter. I know people that could outpaint me. Because there's the craft, there's the just taking, okay, what's in front. There's people on the street in New York that can go ahead and in 20 minutes do a photocopy of a person sitting in front of them. You know, absolutely incredible. But it's, you know, just my phone. You know, it's a tool. And so how much you develop your own tool for what you're trying to express and the way you need to express it. You know, you need to exercise that depending on what you know, the more vocabulary you have in your toolbox, the more things you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it ends up being, what are you doing with it? What are you saying? And a lot of times when you have a flashy new tool, it's like, oh, it makes this kind of stroke. And then everyone's, oh, you got, you know, the X47 brush because I see that stroke.
Yeah,
and everyone's painting in the
it.
X47 brush stroke. And it's like, you know, I mean, it's like the colors and tones that you got in there. It's like, I love those. I love that. That hue, color, flavor is like fun eye candy. But it also, especially this day and age, there's so much fucking eye candy.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes almost commercial bland, you know? And that comes to that part is like, how do you go make something that actually talks to somebody else that says something different than all this noise that we're constantly getting hammered with? And that's that element that as I'm kind of being forced to move away from commercial art into, it's like, Alex and I have to put together a solo show in a couple of months and I'm not even halfway ready for it. And I got total freedom, which is the worst thing in the world. Whatever the fuck you want, because then it's like, well, what do I don't have?
Yeah.
I'm an illustrator. I don't have anything to say,
Yeah.
or I have something to
you
say,
need
but
it-
I'm
you need,
saying it through
direction.
somebody else's voice.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're gonna go ahead. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do Moby Dick, but I'm gonna do Moby Dick the way my philosophy of the world through Moby Dick. You know, so I'm gonna do Herman Melville my way versus you doing Herman Melville your way. You know? But if it's just me sitting here, it's like going ahead
Yeah, like here's a blank.
and having and you know, because I'm not if I'm gonna do social commentary, it's gonna be a very hidden, quiet sort of thing, just by virtue of who I am, as opposed to kind of waving a flag for some cause.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, that's really what, if you want to be heard, you got to have a voice that you're going to say. Otherwise, all you're doing is just making more icon candy that's just to go in and sell DVDs and movies and soda pop, and it looks rich and flashy, and yeah. So there's this level where it's like I'm almost kind of feeling like I should get sloppier. Because there's that element that happened, what was it, the 80s, 90s, no, the 90s, and the turn of the century, where doing like a LuxCon, and they were like, no digital art. They actually they wanted to keep the con small, they wanted to make it fine art, fantastic realism, that's their tag, something like that. So they're trying to go and take that commercial fantasy sci-fi thing into the fine art gallery world and find a bridge. So it's like, and when they started it, it was a lot of digital gaming art that all looked the same out of the same can, beautiful eye candy, lots of dynamic, lots of blues and blacks and multi-lighting situations and great movement, but it all looked the same, and it wasn't a solid original you could actually sell.
Yeah, there's always been
And
a downfall of digital.
yeah, and a lot of those digital artists ended up, because of that, they ended up starting to paint. And it's kind of neat to see. It's like, you know, and the amount that they learned from the digital tool as a teacher. And I talked to one, he was so afraid to pick up oil. And he did this, and he ended up doing this really neat little oil painting. But it was like, for years, he was just doing it digitally. I mean, it's kind of pre-sketching on the computer, figure out where he's going. And then he picked up the actual real medium and built an object. So it's that element that is kind of the same as the small publishing with the books. And it's like, no, books are dead. No, books are now back to like the way they were in like 1910. They're like these expensive gems that you want to go ahead and own. So it's like that hand built. I know a human being built that. It becomes valuable again. It's kind of cool. Yeah. So it all comes back around eventually. Yeah. Did you finish your drink?
I did, unfortunately.
That's all I'm saying.
No, you're good.
You need something.
Yeah.
This was
That's
a
funny,
gift.
thanks.
I never had this tequila before, but it's not too bad. Anyone else want
Tequila.
So when is your show?
No idea. Sometime this summer. It's in Long
No
Island
idea.
in July, I hope.
I'm not halfway done. No idea.
End of August. Oh, yeah, because I have to get things, because I have to build things for Gen Con as well, which happens at the beginning of August. And I want to build, I do a lot of stuff in oil for that one because it's easier to move oil paintings than it is to move watercolors. Ironically, watercolors need mattes and glass and all that. And oils are actually
Oils are
lighter
durable.
and easier to,
Yeah.
if they dry in time.
Yeah.
And then it comes
They
to
dry in
the
time.
part of what colors, what pigments, and I've gotten a handle on what pigments to use that tend to dry and kick quicker.
Have you ever had to some type on your phone and turn it into
For the show thing, there's been more of a problem of playing with oil into oil, and depending on the weather, the humidity, there's going to be factors for getting it to the gallery. I did all my commercial stuff I've done, except for the Animal Farm, done in watercolor for that point. It had literally, because it's like generally it's last minute situation. It's like you go ahead and you throw stuff on. Most ideal is to go ahead and put it away for a day, pick it up 2 days later, take another look at it, and play with it. And rarely you have that kind of luxury.
Yeah.
So it ends up being like, oh shit, I have to go ahead and put it when it used to be FedEx and art. You know, I have to drop it in the box at 12 o'clock, and it's like 10 that morning. It's like, yeah, it's still a little bit there, a little bit there, you know, and then wrap it up and make it go. Well, I don't need to do that with the watercolor. No, because it's like a lot of what I do. I don't do a lot of wet and wet work.
Okay.
If you're seeing that,
Yeah.
this is actually probably a little wetter than normal. Because a lot of it ends up being, you go ahead and you
I was
play
wondering
with
about
the
that.
amount of liquid that you're carrying in the brush, and it ends up working almost kind of, you know, like a pen. And
What are you
you
painting?
kinda-
Is this watercolor paper?
yeah,
Yeah.
this is actually, I think this is some strathmore. I tend to go ahead and work off of a Fabriano.
Okay.
Actually, I have some sheets in here. I didn't pull that for this for some reason, which I like because the sizing they have on it allows for a lot of pulling back out.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't pull out as good. This is also a rough press, cold press, as opposed to a hot press. So, I mean, that pulls out only about that much.
Yeah.
While the Fabriano, say,
Oh, the cord's over here.
Fabriano.
Oh.
I just wanted to make sure that my son, you know, went out
When
to
you
work.
pull out, you mean that you're putting the rag on it.
Yeah, so go ahead and you drop it. Actually, this thing's been sitting in, I don't know how long, so the size is probably on. And be able to go ahead and scrub. But it also takes a lot of abuse the way its weave is done. So it's like, I can't do that with the Strathmore. But the Fabriano is go ahead and I'll use a hog's hair on it to go ahead and dig pigment back out. And you can go ahead and dig pigment
You
right
can
out.
kind of scrape it back out still, even though it's been.
Oh, fuck, I said brand new piece of paper. It's like you can go ahead and play.
How long do you spend like nitpicking and just deciding on like the angle and like the positioning of your figures, because they seem to be like squirming a lot of the times, or they're like curling back on themselves a lot.
Yeah, well, it's like
And I really
No,
enjoy the
so
motion
it's like
in your
throw a profile,
Mm-hmm.
right? People see that. That reads.
Yeah,
That's
that's
enough
yeah,
information to read.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. And then I go like, oh, I mean, it's a little too flat, and this is starting to do something. So then it's like, oh, maybe I need to actually kind of bring a 3/4 into it. So you start pulling the 3/4, and that's where the nitpicking starts happening.
Yeah.
Is like, and that's where my approach to watercolor isn't mapping everything and laying in. Ruskin will hate me, and it's like, and I got vindicated. It's like a nice little book, Victorian watercolorist or something like that. They publish it. It's a very nice collection of the whole genre scope of Victorian watercolor, and it has this little thing that's like Ruskin talking about the approach to watercolor. Actually, the purity, and he was had its whole philosophy of like working from life, and it's like everything had to be, got to appease the gods, just so. And a contemporary friend of his, Omar, had a totally different approach to it, and he went ahead and Ruskin was sitting in front of him, and he just went ahead and covered the entire paper in a number, just wiped it solid underpaint, and then just started with the hog's hair, started just kind of grabbing and pulling, and it's the most fantastic portrait of Ruskin. In the exact opposite approach to what Ruskin's idea of your watercolor should be about, and it's like go ahead and fight out from that, and then go ahead and pick. And you can kind of see the way he picks the eyelashes and all that, and it's like using the fuzz of the paper that you could beat the shit out of, which is the opposite of the whole idea of watercolors. It's really just pure wash on to let the paper shine through the pigment. Yeah, and it depends on what you're looking for.
Have you ever painted on a UPO or like a plastic instead of the paper?
No, I haven't. But I have gotten. I play with with I got my own size for something to play with that a little bit. It's like in slips and slides.
Yeah,
It's too slippery.
I enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun to play, but the level of
Well, the pulling back on it is so easy because you just get a wet again.
And then it ends up being,
done,
because that ends up being one of those problems.
But
And
then
I
you're
don't notice as
one
much
drop of
with
white
the
surface.
Fabriano as I did with the Strathmore, because there is a part where it's like if you have, and it probably is a rough press, because I tend to work hot press,
Mhm.
because I like to have, again, it's the detail line approach as opposed to having it tooth. I don't really need the tooth. And the tooth probably is holding on to the liquid a little longer than the hot press does. Because it's like if it's wet and you're trying to go ahead and build dark, it'll actually go ahead and do the opposite and bloom out. And that comes back to kind of just getting an intuitive sense of like how wet is your brush and how wet is your paper and how the two interact. But it also falls a little bit into the trap of like I was feeling kind of back because I got to trash the AI guy. It's the medium. It's the medium. How much the medium starts dictating. It was like that slippery was fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a fun thing to play with. But I felt like it was going to start telling me how to paint instead of me telling it how to paint.
I found like if
And
you
it's
work
that
slowly enough,
Element.
It's-
And that's where it's like
and
you
you-
have to consciously
Yeah.
make sure that you're riding the horse isn't dragging you.
Mhm.
And some of these flashy, neat things that give you some brilliant effects, no doubt about it. They are fantastically powerful tools. But it's because they're fantastically powerful and they give you such quick responses, you could very easily realize that you're on a runaway horse and you're not the one that's actually in control anymore. And you're now just the monkey in the back, kind of shoveling coal, and you're not the one actually driving the engine. And it's that balance of this should be doing what I'm asking
Well,
it to
yeah.
do, and it's like I fight with it, but I'm fighting with it because of my lack of talent. I'm not fighting with it because the material is wanting to do something
do
else,
something right. Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, be shit ton easier if I let the material do this for me. That's where it's like watercolor. It's like, yeah, it'd be really cool. Just go ahead and lay a big wash, drop some pigment, lick it, throw a little bit of salt on it, make it,
Let it do something.
and like, there's a lot of special effects you could chuck at it that happen literally in minutes, as opposed to spending a week of kind of like doing this picky glazy thing that I'm doing, But the picky glazy thing allows me the opportunity while I'm building something to go, oh, it's not, the figure's not doing this, the figure's actually doing that, and it's like, I don't know what that shape, that shape is actually a hedgehog. I had no idea there was going to be a hedgehog there, and it's like allowing the time
It allows it to grow.
in there, that I'm fighting with it, and it's a communication back and forth as opposed to it running with me or me trying to just make it splat. If I was doing 500 of the same landscape to sell in an art fair, I totally understand the technique. Here's a neat, flashy effect that looks good behind someone's sofa, and I can do 100 of them in a weekend. But I get so bored so fast. It's like, and that's where I see a lot of the dangers of visual AI. It's the same thing. It's like, you can push a button and make the think the colors in the construction is nice, and I don't know the process of how much you get to go and say, okay, that there, how much is doing. I don't know if it's good enough, but there's got to be some direction.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like how much you go ahead and actually not get trapped in the flavor of whatever the new gimmick is versus what it is you're trying to communicate. And it generally falls to storytelling and how those characters tell a story ends up being more the aesthetic of the character pose and the lighting on it. You do, I got all those anthropomorphic animals. If you go ahead and try it through a Disney filter, it'll be a different thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's going to have the same, if Disney went ahead and had a trunk bear. And I remember as a kid, it's like Baloo. It's like, I love the movement.
Yeah,
of those
he was
guys.
great,
I mean,
yeah.
they're fantastic. But, if I was to go and do that same thing Disney style,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
So it's like the aesthetic filter
Yeah.
ends up being very important.
well, yeah, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, so for me, right, graduating in '98, I've been raising a family. I'm getting towards the end now.
Oh, you brave man.
Yeah, 4 kids.
Four.
And that's what has
How do
driven.
you people find time and energy to do anything?
I don't.
It's like, yeah, 'cause it's like, I mean, this shit's exhausting enough to try and like.
I told you I stay up late. I listen to Cranberry and Addiction. I paint. That's how.
No, but it's for me, that's what was driving me in the 2000s and then the last 20 years was the need to provide. And so
Yeah.
I'm a chameleon.
Yeah,
I've done
I respect
just
that.
about everything.
And that's that brush for hire aspect,
Yeah.
that sense of like, what is the need out there and how do I use my raw talents to go and fill that need and to fill it quick and economically, especially if you got 4 kids you got to show. Like shit.
But
Four grown adults
now
at
that
this
that's
point, right?
coming to an end,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna get rid of them.
my second oldest left home 3 days after graduating from high school 2 years ago and has not asked for a dime. Just drove away. I know where she went, but she made it.
She just drove away, never to be heard from again.
Pennsylvania.
That's brilliant.
But,
Well, you did a good job with that one,
Yeah.
in my opinion. That's
Yeah.
the sign.
She's gonna. She made us proud, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have missed being in that track
Mm-hmm.
is the personal expression, which is one of the things I value about Omar's work is the expressive funniness of his characters.
Yeah.
And then as I paint, nothing that's fun or funny right here.
well,
You don't always have to be on fire.
it's hard to come up with stuff like that
Mhm.
on the fly. I mean, for me, if I'm doing something
Well,
personal,
it's. I have to say, it's like the difference here versus what I do typically is I usually start with the idea. The idea generally, if it's not from my head doing its AI algorithm of the things I just looked at. Fun thing is just like if you're flipping through Google or old time analog, it's like art history book. And you just go, and you just get these images, and you get these weird. It's almost kind of like the dictionary game,
yeah.
where you kind of like open up, yeah, and it's
I
like
just
you,
put a finger
grab
on
you
word,
grab
yeah.
you grab a word,
Yeah.
grab another word somewhere in the dictionary, put them together, and like, what does that start evoking? And that sort of thing happens. Or it ends up being, because I'm not a wordy guy, but at the same time, a large amount ends up being puns or some kind of whatchamacallit.
Ehrenstein there.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't know if you actually started that way. That's what, if we did that thingamajiggy, it
Yeah.
was all the daily whatnots, which ended up all being, it's essentially generated by wordplay.
Oh, okay.
You know, and it started with a wordplay. And
The ones that you put up on that. What's that? Everyday?
Etsy, Everyday Original.
Everyday Original.
Everyday
Yeah.
Original. Before Everyday Original, it was an Etsy. It was actually an exercise.
I like the idea.
Kind of like this, the notion of like, oh, I'm not playing in my sand pit. You know, it's like I'm not going to the playground. I'm picking up the brush when I have a contract. I'm not doing something just for fun and experimenting with stuff. And so it's like I tried going and doing it every day for my own exercise,
Mhm.
and it ended up being, you know, it's kind of like a play on words. And just do a one character thing that takes, you know, an hour or two of a play on word. Ended up being, and that allowed for more of a sense of you gotta. I think it's almost from like the animation class with Ruthie. It's like you got to go ahead. You have to embody the actor. You know, it's like where there. It's like it's a tricky.
Right.
It's
right.
a big
Okay.
part. Like even
Yeah.
when
You
it's
gotta feel that expression.
and not only the feeling, but you also got to cast it right. And that ends up being a very big part while working on something. Is like, you know, especially when it's commissioned from publishers. It's like, what's the casting?
Mm-hmm.
Who's playing this part? Even if it is a bear, you know, what kind of bio? You know, what's his? You know, and it's like, you know, his mannerism point, and then you look at the situation you put in it, and then it becomes the body language. You go ahead and tell a story, and I don't really want to know the whole story because I want to go ahead and just give a hint of you walked in the room and this person's doing, and it's like, what the fuck did he just do? What is he thinking? You know, I don't know as the person painted it, but I want you to be able to kind of at least know that there's something more behind the element of it as opposed to here's a pretty person standing. You know, it's like, because there's so many pretty models out there, and now with these Instagram filter things, is everyone's a pretty model. So what's the fucking point? You know.
Yeah.
But
Getting a few million
that's what it's like.
followers.
I used to watch a lot of old black and white movies, you know, and I kind of regret of, you know, there's some interesting actors now, but you look at the old days and the
I think it's moving back in that direction.
50s, and and you get more character.
Yeah.
And it's the character actors are really like killing it, and it's like, but you look back at the old, and it's like they're not pretty people, but man, they're interesting to look at.
Yeah.
You know,
Jimmy
they
Stewart's just
got
long and lanky and all over the place.
personalities, and just their face, and then the way it's like in black and white. You go ahead and you're stripping it more to minimalism. It's just lighting and shade and personality you have to kind of get across. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're officially running over time.
Ah.
So we got to wrap it up.
Yep.
But thank you,
Wow.
Omar, for hanging out and talking about
That
us. painting
worked.
Stuff. Yeah,
All right. What do you think of the tequila?
that's good.
Yeah, it's not too
A little bit of old fashioned at the bottom of it.
Oh, yeah?
It was good.
bad. No, I just kind of missing a little bit.